Ready?
Start it, 3, smile.
Susie, did you turn that back on?
Yes, I
Okay,
did.
thank you.
We had closed session prior to coming back into open session, and no reportable action was taken in the closed session. So we are on old business item, general operating budget FY 2013 draft for submission to member agencies, for submission for member agency review. Now, where were we?
Directors, I have taken this opportunity of this meeting to take the budget that we discussed at the budget workshop, took the comments back. Most of the comments for that budget were formatting and presentation comments. We think we've improved the budget from that point of view to give you spreadsheets that will that have more information on them, fewer of them, and printed spreadsheets that again, fewer of them and with more information per sheet. These two budgets, the collections budget and the operating budget, your staffs have had them for going on 3 weeks now. Unofficially, I met with the member agencies briefly, transmitted these documents to them. Since then, I've received no comments from them. I'd like the board to approve both of these documents for submission to the member agencies for a detailed review to keep the budget process moving forward.
Well, I'll say a good sign is that I didn't hear from Chuck. That's a good sign.
Well, thank you for getting it to us earlier. I think that's going to be helpful for all concerned to have a chance to look through it.
So, we need a motion to
So, well, I have a question on page 3, or on page 2. I have a feeling I figured out the answer, but I want to ask anyway. When I take, say, actually I did this with both the admin general line and the treatment general line, and I divided the dollar amount by the percentage at the top of the column, and I got different results for the 3 member agencies.
Different results.
Say, for example, if I divide admin general by 50%, you know, if I take Halfman Bay's admin general divided by 50%, I got 10771. I divide GSD's admin general by 28.7, I got 10745. And then I divided MWSD's admin general by 21.3, and I got 10760. I think I may have figured out why those aren't the same, but
Well, if I don't know, I couldn't tell you. I mean, one of the reasons why we're passing this along, if there are errors in here, we went to great lengths to be sure these things were right. But
at first I thought it was an error, but now my tentative conclusion is that it's because you rounded off the percentages to 0.1%, and because then I went back and I ran it the other way, and the percentages that I came out with were 50.045. So you see that's 0.5% different from.
Tony, do we know if the accountant kept the percentages running, or did he break them down to 0.1%? Okay. Well, we should go back and check that, because they should. In a spreadsheet, you never need to round them off. I mean, you can just. If they're rounded,
because when I computed the percentages based on the numbers, all of my computed percentages are less than 0.5% different from what's shown there, which leads me to believe that it's just round off at the top. So maybe you can throw in at least one more digit on the percentages.
Well, I think we ought to be able to carry all the numbers forward. There's no reason to round them off. We're not picking them up and moving them. They're coming out of some. I'll double check on that, but we shouldn't be rounding these things.
Because it might be better to show more digits there, so that if somebody else like me, say Bob, decides to poke at the numbers, and, you know, he won't make a big stink about it either.
Quick decimal point.
Well, if you take, for example, if you take Montera, you divide the 229,195 by the total, the 1076, instead of getting 21.3, you get 21.298.
Yep, that's what I got.
Yeah, I think it's just where the decimal points are.
And when you
Right.
multiply
Yeah.
that times a million, it gets to be a
But,
big
but,
number.
but they add across to the 1076.
Well, what I'm saying is I think the numbers were computed using more digits than are actually shown on the
Exactly.
first line.
Exactly.
That's all.
Yeah.
All right.
Good assumption.
Okay, so I'll make a motion to approve this budget for submission to the member agencies for review.
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion?
I have a discussion comment. When this is distributed, Steve, can we please have this in Excel as well?
It's been distributed in Excel.
Perfect. Thank you.
And didn't we send you Excel with the?
I don't know, I've been working on the PDF one, but we have it, so.
I thought we, yeah, because you wanted the exploding cells, we have those.
Perfect, great.
We have, and it's up on the web that way, I believe, as well.
I missed it.
Okay.
Thank you very much for doing that.
Okay.
That's really important to me, I really appreciate it.
We learned a lot about putting spreadsheets together, trying to accomplish these things, and, but they do some good stuff.
Powerful tool.
So that means that any member of the public who likes filling with numbers can download the Excel?
They can,
Unpublished link,
Oh,
If they have nothing better to do with their lives, yes.
and it's an unlocked file.
The one suggestion I still have, Steve, and not for right now, but for going forward, I'm understanding this much better, what you're doing. At the end of the day, I'd still like to see us start out the budget process with one page that really looks at all the major categories and adds down to the totals, so that we can look at the total budget and very quickly, just in key areas, we can see what percentages.
look at page 4 of 45. Isn't that what that's what you asked us to do? I thought that's what we did.
Well, no, I like this style, I mean, because it blends with these, but all I'm thinking is that if you were able to group the key ones together,
How's that different than what we did on page 5, Director? I'm not sure. We did it, it's smaller, it's only, it's looking at the proposed assessments over 3 years, actuals of 12 budgeted for the main components of the personnel, utilities, professional services, chemicals. Isn't that what you asked for?
in overall theory, yes. What I was hoping was that you just follow what you've already got, just group it, and then if I was interested in like payroll, it would just relate directly to the sheets below it, it would all follow. You see what I'm saying?
We did attempt to do that, and one of the issues gets to be that in our accounting scheme, these things, if all chemicals went chemical 1, 2, 3, 4, you could collapse them, you could blow them up, you could do stuff like that. Some of these things are in different places in the administrative budget and that's why we made a separate sheet of it here, so we can get, these are all compressions of that. We did try to do that and we're not successful at it, because we'd have to change the numbering or rearrange them within the spreadsheet, which would make, we can do that, but it'll make it confusing because the numbers will not progress through there.
I actually have a question on that. If we have, I forget how many chemicals it was, but there's like at least 4 big ticket chemicals, plus gasoline and diesel. And, so the first one that caught my attention is, why are there 2 separate accounts and budgets for diesel and gasoline? They both go into the vehicles to make the vehicles move, right?
They're completely different fuels, Leonard, come on.
First of all, diesel, have you ever heard of red diesel?
Yeah.
Diesel used for things like generators is dyed a different color than diesel used in trucks. And so we do have 2 different purposes. One of them is for transport and one of them is for energy standby.
Okay, so that's the reason for the separate account, not that there's some diesel vehicles, but it's the diesel to run the plant.
Tony?
Well, we have diesel vehicles also, but we use a lot of diesel for the generators, and I think that's why it was broken out, so the volume.
It's a utility. In fact, you might argue that that it ought to go in utilities because it's an energy source. Diesel for the plant is the same as natural gas for the plant. And, you know, and power, we could put it could be in there too, and
So
I hadn't thought of that.
So is the diesel line in the budget, is that only non-vehicle diesel?
It's both, it's both.
And I'd really like to see it split out a completely different way, where you have one budget which is vehicle fuel, whether it's gasoline or diesel, and then the other account is plant diesel.
Just, we could, is this the best time to start adjusting the chart of accounts?
May I suggest, through the chair, may I suggest this is something that we include going forward as opposed to amending what we have in front of us?
Okay.
There, once you start playing, you can cut these numbers 500 different ways.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you don't want to.
I think we've had, the staff has spent enough time
But,
on
you know, also, I mentioned the chemicals, it's
Well, I
not
mean,
clear to me why we need
I
that
would
many
ask you on this kind of thing, you know, in terms of slicing and dicing, do you intend to find some kind of benefit in managing the resource better, or is it just because you wanna see it split out? I mean, honestly, if it's because you wanna see it split out, we can always look at receipts. And we get the checks every month, we can look through those.
Well, it's not so much split out, but understanding where the costs go, that's why I'm saying.
I understand.
That gasoline and vehicle diesel.
I understand, but to the point for why we're here tonight, I would
Yeah,
point back to, we're looking at a budget, and that's why I go right to, look, you know, you really want the understanding of the detail and depth. I mean, I think we start with the check register and go from there. It's not that hard to say, hey, I wanna see all the expenditures that are in this budget, you know, are in this category. If we're gonna be looking at those things though, and especially spending everybody's time on it, I'm hopeful that we can point to some kind of oversight advantage to doing that. You know, if we're not, if we wanna look, for example, at, one more time at cogen and taking the methane that we generate, use that to offset some of the diesel costs, and we're trying to put together some kind of potential ROI to help justify the expenditure for the cogen facility, that's a perfect, see, that would be the kind of rationale where I'd just stand right there with you and go, yeah, let's look at that number. If it's just because we wanna slice and dice, I don't care.
but now, you know, in terms of, you know, the other end of my question, which is why do we have like at least four different accounts for different, you know, one chemical each? I mean, to me, that just is more clutter in the budget that actually makes it harder to understand.
I would suggest, I don't think this is the time to resolve that. I think we're-
Okay,
I agree. Yeah.
You got a motion on the floor?
ready for a vote?
Yeah.
Hearing no further discussion, those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, any abstentions? Motion carries 8-0.
If I may, first of all, if I received the budget, I apologize to staff, I didn't see it, I missed it. Who would that have come from? See, would it come from you, the Excel spreadsheet you said you sent out?
It came from Susan.
Or it's also on our website.
I'm looking for, I see the packet, I don't see the spreadsheet.
Yeah.
It's an email link.
Oh, actually, I didn't go look for the Excel, I just got the PDFs.
We can resend it, we can resend it after the meeting.
I see Sam went to packet,
Yeah.
is that, it would be in that, or?
There's two links,
Inside
the
that same
second
email.
email.
So I see an HTML for the agenda and then PDF as the other, and we're looking for a spreadsheet link.
Yeah, it looks like
Is it in
this.
the PDF?
Have the HTML agenda and then the PDF agenda packet.
But we'd be looking for like an Excel.
Pass it out to people as
The
they go out
agenda
tonight.
packet, click on the agenda packet now.
I can't remember it offhand.
If you just mail us a
Click on
link
that
to
one.
And
pull down the
that's a
Excel
PDF
file, that's all we need.
Yeah.
We're just looking for
Yes,
clarity on
and
that,
then
so.
click on the budget.
Well, we definitely want
On
to be
the
sure
agenda.
that your managers get it, that was the purpose of
Yeah.
doing that.
Yeah.
So is there any
Scroll
reason
down.
why we wouldn't wanna?
No, we want the Excel, I want the Excel
Oh,
document,
gotcha.
so we can
It wasn't
Excel.
fiddle.
Right.
Is there any reason why we wouldn't wanna publish the
I'm sure you have
Excel
it,
documents?
it went out as
It's on-
PDF.
It's on the
I'll get
web.
you the address.
But I thought
Appreciate it.
Tony said it's on a
I thought it was
non-published
just
link.
announced.
That's okay, no big deal.
So,
It's an unpublished to the public link, but,
Right.
we thought we'd email it to you. If we didn't, we'll give it to you right away.
Well, we have the PDF up on the,
Yeah.
and
Right.
yeah, I agree with you, if people wanna have fun with it,
What else am I gonna do all week? My God.
I know that in some previous years when we've gotten the spreadsheet, there's been a lot of kind of, it's not cleaned up for public presentations, there's some noodling and other things going on and that are fine, it's just, it's part of, when you're dealing with a really big spreadsheet, it's some of that extraneous stuff.
Well, let's just suggest that staff.
So, I mean, I could see why it would take more work to share the spreadsheet, but if you're ready to do it, that's great.
I think these spreadsheets are in good shape. That's what we've kept our hands off and let the accountant do them all, so it's,
Alright, so let's just say that staff will confer amongst themselves and decide whether or not to put the Excel on a public link.
I don't think I want to put it in the public domain, do we?
I don't see why not.
Not
So-
yet, not yet.
It's an unlock sheet.
Let's,
No, let's give it to the board. I think I'm sensing that the timing isn't appropriate to give the public the unlocked sheet. I'm hearing right between nods,
It's not
but I
approved.
think the board would like to have it. I think that's fair.
Yeah.
alright. Never mind.
okay, so it's going to be sent to the managers and the board.
That's great. And thank you, thanks for that.
Okay, old business, B, general collections contract.
I'm not sure if we can do that.
Do what?
I hate to speak up, but I'm not sure if it's distributed to the board that we don't have an obligation to share it with the public.
Well, no, we can share the PDF with the public,
Yeah.
which is it's identical at this point until somebody gets their hands on the.
If we were distributing this, if we were distributing the Excel spreadsheet to the board at the meeting, I know that the Brown Act would require us to make a copy available to the public at the same time. So I'm not sure that we,
I mean, we do have a copy available.
no, in the same form.
No, when we do budget work of the city,
Sorry to raise the point, but I don't.
no, we basically make up PDF copies. And I think if one of the council asks for something that they could actually look at in an Excel sheet, as long as the public has access to, I think, the basic document, I think we're okay in that area.
I really think that, and I hate to be a stickler on this, but I really don't think the Brown Act gives us any latitude on
Actually,
whatever's distributed to the board.
It's in the Public Records Act. The Public Records Act says that upon request, the agency has to make an electronic document available to the public in any format that the agency has it in. So if somebody from the public asks for the Excel copy, we have to give it to them.
No, and the thing I'm talking about is the Brown Act requirement that any document distributed to the board,
Yeah, I don't think it refers to formats though.
it doesn't have any carve-outs either for what format the board prefers that the public have it in. If we're asking for it in one format, if you were on the other side of the table,
Well, you know me.
if you
I'm
were on the
always
other
in
side of the
favor
table, you'd want the Excel spreadsheet too.
I'll tell you what.
I don't see any reason not to.
I'll tell you what, I'll get you an answer by the next meeting, how's that?
An answer to.
Yeah, what the formats are required.
Honestly, I think safe harbor is gonna be whatever you give to us, you make available to the public if they ask. That's,
Is there a problem doing that?
Yeah, I
So
I don't see
I
why.
would suggest sometimes may I be so bold, but sometimes in an internal working document, might be rough around the edges, there might be comment fields, other things like that.
right.
And if it's, I'm happy to share the budget with the public, and if I look at our staff and they say, maybe it's not ready, to share the electronic, Excel spreadsheet, I'm gonna go with that.
I understand the thought, I mean, that's why I was talking about the internal noodling around, I mean, the comment fields in particular, things like, double check this number, those kind of things which aren't part of the final.
Well, that would be considered draft, and draft documents are generally not subject to the Public Records Act.
So, I'm gonna leave it here, but it sort of feels like if the general manager went email the board, he also does not have to email the entire community. And it sort of falls into that category for me, and at this point, I want to see the numbers. I can go type all those numbers in myself and recalculate all the formulas myself. I can stop by tomorrow morning and pick up a copy if that gets us out of this.
Yeah, it's a draft, yeah, it's a working document.
Do we have any problems sending this to your staffs?
No.
Okay.
Thank you.
Item 5B, General Collections Contract Budget FY 2013-14 draft for submission to, draft? hard time with the two fours and for submission for member agency review.
The same applies. This is the, we haven't done nearly as much formatting on this document as you asked for on the operating document. It's pretty straightforward, given that it's primarily personnel. We want your staffs to look at this and give us feedback.
There was one difficulty I had with the first sheet, page 2 of 14, and that is on the fixed insurance costs. Because MWSD's number includes liability insurance for the water system, and that doesn't apply to the other two member agencies, kind of like that fixed insurance costs to be split out into two lines, where one line would apply only to MWSD.
Got it. Okay.
Because I couldn't make head or tail out of percentages because of that.
Can you have Chuck note that, and we'll make the correction when this draft returns? Your
What's the
staff's gonna
reference,
review
Chuck?
this, if you could get it back to us, I'm trying to keep the number of drafts as few as possible.
Oh, I
And
see.
that's an easy change to make, in the next draft, if Chuck comments on it.
Okay. Director comments?
Yeah, it's a good comment.
Okay, the one thing I was trying to understand from this is we basically have, whether or not it's currently staffed, we basically have 4 positions in collections, right? And so if we look at productive payroll plus overtime plus benefits, those 3, which is essentially salary, adds up to 640 something or other for 4 collection systems people. I'm missing something.
Tony,
That means
would you explain, it's not that simple, but I just wanted to give you an explanation of it.
It comes out to more than 4 people. There's 4 people stationed there, but we also have a mechanic. They're about half-time. I think we have planning figures that we use because it's not the same every year. And I think with operations, they assist sometimes, so we put a quarter of an operator in there, a quarter-time operator. So it comes out to more than 4 people. And we do that to be able to plan for the right amounts for that.
I don't know. Still seems pretty high to me. But I don't hear anything from any other directors, so I guess I'm gonna have to move on. Any other comments or a motion?
I move that we send this out to the agencies.
I second the motion.
It's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries 8-0.
I move that we extend the meeting by 2 months.
What? Item 6, managers report.
A couple of things to report on, Mr. Chair. We have investigated the leachate situation. The folks at Ox Mountain are very interested in the leachate, returning it to us. We have raised the issue with them once again about the road, and they punted it back to us saying, well, do you guys have a road expert? And we've been talking to Mo Sharma at Half Moon Bay to see if he can find us a road expert that will look at the road and see what condition it's in for heavy transport. So that was as of 10 days ago. I don't know of any update from that. Yeah, the folks at Ox Mountain, to be fair, we've had a long-running discussion with them about what to do about the leachate. That's going to be that they're gonna be responsible for that leachate, or their successors are gonna be responsible for that leachate for hundreds of years from. And, you know, we have suggested to them and tried to work with them about coming up with permanent lines that would bring the leachate down without truck transport, and they don't seem ready to, you know, to look at a long-term capital program to do that.
How far are they from here?
4 miles?
I don't think it's that far. There's lines, happen to be have lines that go up to Spanish Town area, so that's about how far they go.
Oh, so you're saying they could just do a small extension and put a meter up at their end?
You know, which is, you know, gets the trucks off the street, whatever, but we've talked to them, they're interested because they are currently hauling it over to SBSA, it's expensive and it takes a lot of time. I don't know that we don't have a clear path yet to get an answer for the road, which is key to us. You know, we had that broken sewer, which I don't know for sure that it was caused by that. We also had a crushed conduit in the plant, could have been done by other trucks, but that was the one that was coming through laden 6 times a day, and you know, we just don't know the condition of that road. So
how long is the truck compared to the width of our property at the frontage road? Is the truck shorter than the width of our property at the frontage road?
that's why we had to make that turnout as big as we did.
Because I had an idea, but it'll only work if the trucks are not longer than the property, and that is put a port over there with a meter and have them just park on the frontage road and
We have had that discussion. I think you know, it could be done. You could actually do it at a turnaround in front of the plant. You could do it there too. Of course, that puts them on the road again. We can explore that option. I think that the neighbors might have a lot to say about that. Even though the leachate is you know, it's pretty innocuous stuff. That being said, it's called leachate. But if the board would like, I'm happy to look at that. We have a sewer out there, and it wouldn't be, my guess is they'd love to put a connection in for us. Any other thoughts on that? I also want to mention that we're still working on the capital budget. We have a 5-year spreadsheet put together with backup documents to remind the board that the capital improvement program is subtended to the reserve policy, and one of the questions raised in the reserve policy was the maintenance of cash for long-term projects. We've done a bit of research on that. I've done some research with other JPAs. Council's done some research with member agency lawyers, and no one is familiar with a format or process by which a member agency would hold money for a long-term capital project in a joint powers agency. The closest thing I got to that, first of all, no one, I mean, bottom line is, no council and no staff member knows of anything, no mechanism to do that. They're not aware of one. The closest thing I got was SBSA, according to Dan Childs, tried it 15 years ago. It never got off the ground, and the idea was shelved. What I think our next option would be to go to maybe assemble our respective council to come up with, have them work out some kind of agreement that we can start looking at, if that's where the board wants to go. I'll bring this back at the next meeting to see if we have some direction for that. But I just wanted to report that we're looking at that and really haven't got any purchase.
Or keep the funds within SAM, as originally.
Well, that's, yeah, the idea was to change that. Right now, I don't have a model for that, and apparently no one else does either, at least nobody we've talked to.
Yeah, I've thought about that more, and I think we probably should reopen that discussion. I've probably been convinced by the arguments from the Montero reps in terms of where the money should be.
Mr. Chair, that concludes my report.
Thank you. Item 7, Director's Report. Item 8, Public Comment, Oral Communication. I have one thing which I'll mention again at the beginning of the regular meeting. I have to go find it, but I got email about the upcoming First Flush. And I don't know if we've missed the training already. They were doing it real early.
I think snapshot for.
Snapshot day, right.
Yeah,
It all blurs
earlier,
together.
First Flush.
Well, First Flush has been happening earlier and earlier every year. Snapshot Day, I don't know if we've missed the training already or what, but I always try and talk people into participating in Snapshot Day, and it's usually really nice weather and it's a fun thing to do, so contact me or Tony if you're interested. And that includes anybody from the public who'd like to go out and take samples. So with that, we're at item 9, adjournment, and we are adjourned.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good job, Jeanette. Would you,